Imagine a world where the giant that has dominated our desks for 4 decades suddenly starts feeling the ground crumble beneath its feet. For years, Windows was the only game in town. If you wanted to get work done, go to school, or run a business, you essentially had to pay the Microsoft tax. But something happened this last quarter that nobody in Redmond saw coming: a leaked internal memo, reportedly circulating through the highest levels of the tech world, has revealed a statistic that is sending shockwaves through the industry. 6 million Americans have just abandoned their Windows PCs in favor of Chromebooks in a single 3-month window. We are talking about a mass migration of users that is so large and so fast that it has reportedly left Bill Gates and the current Microsoft leadership absolutely stunned. This isn't just a minor shift in market share. This is a full-blown revolution. Today, we are going to tear apart that leaked memo, look at why people are fleeing the Windows ecosystem in record numbers, and explain why the simple, humble Chromebook has suddenly become the biggest threat to Microsoft's survival. The tech landscape is changing faster than most people can keep up with, and for a long time, the consensus was that Chromebooks were just cheap toys for kids in elementary schools. They were the laptops you bought when you couldn't afford a real computer. But that narrative has just been shattered. According to the leaked data, these isn't just students buying these devices. We are seeing a massive surge in senior citizens, small business owners, and even freelance professionals making the switch. The memo allegedly outlines a terrifying reality for Microsoft. Their core user base is realizing that they don't actually need a complex, heavy, and often frustrating operating system to do 90% of what they do online. Why is this happening now? To understand the stunners in this memo, we have to look at the state of Windows 11. Microsoft has been pushing its latest OS with an iron fist, forcing hardware requirements like TPM 2.0 that have made millions of perfectly good computers obsolete overnight. People are tired. They are tired of the constant updates that seem to break more things than they fix. They are tired of the bloatware, the tracking, and the feeling that their own computer is constantly trying to sell them something. When these users went to the store to replace their aging PCs, they looked at the price tags and the complexity of new Windows machines. And then they looked at a $300 Chromebook that boots up in 3 seconds. For 6 million people this quarter, that choice was a no-brainer. The leaked memo reportedly highlights a specific phrase that has been haunting Microsoft executives: the frictionless experience. On a Chromebook, you open the lid, you log in with your Google account, and everything is exactly where you left it. There are no drivers to hunt down. There are no blue screens of death. There are no massive 4 GB updates that prevent you from finishing your work on a Tuesday morning. The memo suggests that Microsoft has lost the battle for simplicity. While they were busy stuffing Windows with AI features and overlapping menu systems, Google was busy making the browser the only operating system that most people actually care about. Bill Gates, although no longer running the day-to-day operations, still holds a massive influence and a huge stake in the company he built. The leak suggests that his surprise comes from how quickly the enterprise sector is starting to bend. For years, the Office was Microsoft's fortress. Excel and Word were the walls that kept everyone else out. But Google Workspace has matured. It has become the standard for the new generation of workers. When you combine the power of Google's cloud tools with a lightweight, secure, and incredibly cheap laptop, you get a value proposition that Microsoft just can't match right now. But let's look closer at the numbers. 6 million users in 3 months in the US alone is staggering. That is roughly 66,000 people a day deciding they are done with Windows. The memo indicates that the biggest surge came from the Midwest and the southern states, areas where people are looking for the most bang for their buck. They aren't interested in a $2,000 Surface laptop that might overheat or require a complex repair. They want a device that works, is easy to replace if it breaks, and keeps their data secure in the cloud. Security is another massive pillar of this migration mentioned in the leaked documents. Windows has always been the primary target for malware and viruses. It is the nature of a complex OS with decades of legacy code. Chromebooks, on the other hand, are effectively sandboxed. Each tab is its own isolated environment. For the average user who just wants to check their bank account and scroll through social media, the peace of mind that comes with Chrome OS is a luxury that Windows struggles to provide. The memo reportedly admits that Microsoft's reputation for security is struggling to keep up with the streamlined reality of Google's alternative. Now let's talk about the AI elephant in the room. Microsoft has bet the house on Copilot. They want AI to be in every corner of your computer. But for a lot of people, this feels like an intrusion. The leaked memo reveals that a significant portion of the users switching to Chromebooks cited privacy concerns and the desire for a less cluttered interface. They don't want an AI assistant watching their every move and suggesting products. They want a tool, not a partner. Chromebooks offer that. They are utilitarian. They stay out of the way. And ironically, Google is also a leader in AI, but they have integrated it more quietly into the background of their web services rather than making it the center of the hardware experience. What does this mean for the future of your desk? If this trend continues, we are looking at a world where the Windows PC becomes a niche product for high-end gamers, video editors, and specialized engineers. The vast majority of the consuming public is being pulled into the Google ecosystem. The memo allegedly discusses the fear that Microsoft is becoming the next IBM or Xerox, a company that is essential for the backbone of big corporations but completely irrelevant to the person sitting at their kitchen table. The reaction within the tech community to this leak has been a mix of vindication and panic. For years, tech reviewers have been saying that the average person should probably just buy a Chromebook, but the stigma of the cheap plastic laptop held people back. Now, with premium Chromebooks from Google, HP, and Acer hitting the market, that stigma is gone. You can get a Chromebook with a beautiful 4K screen, a backlit keyboard, and a sleek aluminum body for half the price of a comparable MacBook or Windows Ultrabook. Microsoft's response, according to the leaked strategy section of the memo, seems to be a desperate push for Windows on ARM. They want to mimic the efficiency of the Chromebook by using mobile processors that give better battery life and instant-on capabilities. But they are fighting an uphill battle. Windows on ARM has been a rocky road for years, with app compatibility issues that frustrate users. Google doesn't have that problem because their apps are built for the web. They don't care what processor you are using. This architectural advantage is something Bill Gates is reportedly very concerned about. Let's think about the economic impact. If 6 million people stop buying Windows licenses, Microsoft loses billions in the long run. Not just from the OS itself, but from the entire ecosystem of subscriptions that usually follows. When you buy a Chromebook, you are more likely to use Google Photos instead of OneDrive, Google Docs instead of Word, and YouTube Music instead of whatever Microsoft is trying to push this week. This is a total loss of the customer lifecycle. The memo calls this the ecosystem drain, and it is the worst-case scenario for a company that relies on recurring revenue. The leaked memo also touches on the repairability factor. Many Chromebooks are designed for the education market, which means they are built to be dropped, spilled on, and easily fixed. In a world where people are becoming more conscious of electronic waste and the right to repair, the modular nature of many Chromebooks is a huge selling point. Windows laptops have become increasingly difficult to service, with soldered RAM and proprietary screws. The 6 million people who switched this quarter are voting with their wallets for a more sustainable and less stressful hardware relationship. The shift in the workplace is perhaps the most fascinating part of the leaked data. It mentions that mid-sized companies are starting to issue Chromebooks to their sales teams and administrative staff. The reason? Lower IT overhead. You don't need a massive team of technicians to manage a fleet of Chromebooks. You can manage 10,000 devices from a single web-based console. The savings in labor alone are enough to make any CFO jump for joy. Microsoft is seeing its corporate stranglehold loosen, and that is a terrifying prospect for Bill Gates and the board. For the listeners who are still on Windows, you might be wondering if you should be part of the next 6 million. It depends on your needs, but the memo makes it clear that the gap is closing. With the integration of Linux apps and Android apps into Chrome OS, the list of things a Chromebook can't do is getting smaller every day. You can edit photos with web-based versions of Photoshop. You can code in VS Code, and you can even play high-end games through services like GeForce Now or Xbox Cloud Gaming. Ironically, people are using Chromebooks to play the games Microsoft owns without ever needing to use Windows. Is Windows failing? Not exactly. It is still the world's most powerful and versatile desktop operating system, but it is suffering from an identity crisis. It wants to be everything for everyone, and in doing so, it is becoming too heavy for the average user. The leaked memo is a wake-up call. It is a sign that the era of the monolithic operating system might be coming to an end. We are moving toward a modular, cloud-centric world where the hardware you use matters less than the account you log into. As the news of this leak spreads, we can expect Microsoft to scramble. We will likely see them announce a simplified version of Windows. Perhaps a revived Windows 10X to try and stem the bleeding. But the question is whether it will be too little, too late. Google has spent a decade perfecting the Chromebook. They have the hardware partners, they have the software suite, and they have the trust of a generation that grew up using Google Classroom. The 6 million people who switched this quarter aren't just a statistic. They are a sign of a massive cultural shift in how we view our relationship with technology. The memo wraps up with a sobering thought for Microsoft employees. It states that the company needs to stop competing on features and start competing on feelings. They need to make people love Windows again, rather than making them feel like they are stuck with it. That is a much harder problem to solve than just writing better code. It requires a fundamental shift in corporate philosophy, a move away from monetization and toward user empowerment. Bill Gates being stunned is the perfect headline for this situation because he represents the old guard of tech, the architects of the desktop revolution. To see that revolution being overtaken by a browser is a poetic turn of events. It shows that in the world of technology, no king rules forever. The moat around the Microsoft castle is being bridged by the very thing that made them great in the first place: their ubiquity. They became so common that they became invisible and eventually replaceable. If you are a tech enthusiast, this is the most exciting time to be alive in decades. We are watching the giants fight for their lives. We are seeing new ideas flourish, and most importantly, we are seeing the power return to the consumer. For the first time in a long time, there is a real choice. You don't have to use Windows. You don't have to use a Mac. You can choose a third way that is fast, secure, and affordable. The 6 million Americans who made that choice this quarter are leading the way into a new digital frontier. We should also consider the impact on developers. As the user base for Chromebooks grows, more and more developers will prioritize web-first applications. This creates a feedback loop. Better web apps make Chromebooks more attractive, which brings in more users, which attracts more developers. This is the exact same virtuous cycle that once made Windows unstoppable. Now it is working against them. The memo reportedly admits that the browser is now the most important platform in the world, and Microsoft doesn't own the world's most popular browser. Google does. This is a strategic disadvantage that is nearly impossible to overcome. Let's look at the hardware innovation. Companies like Framework are now releasing Chromebook versions of their modular laptops. This means you can buy a Chromebook where you can swap out every single port, the screen, the keyboard, and even the motherboard. This level of customization was once the pride of the PC building community. Now it is moving into the Chrome OS space. The leaked memo suggests that Microsoft is falling behind in the vision of what a computer can actually be. They are stuck in the clamshell laptop mold, while the market is moving toward flexibility and longevity. The leaked information also points to a significant drop in support tickets for companies that move to Chromebooks. It turns out that when you take away the ability for users to accidentally download a toolbar or mess up a system registry, things stop breaking. This reliable nature of Chrome OS is a quiet hero in this story. It is the peace of mind that you can give a laptop to your grandmother or your employee and not have to spend your weekend fixing it. That saved time has a massive economic value that the leaked memo finally puts a dollar sign on. What happens if the next quarter shows another 6 million? Or 10 million? We could be looking at a total shift in the landscape by the end of the year. Retailers are already shifting their floor space. If you walk into a Best Buy today, the Chromebook section is no longer in the back corner. It is front and center. They are branded as Chromebook Plus now, a new standard for high-performance units that can handle serious tasks. This marketing push is working, and the leaked memo suggests that Microsoft's marketing budget is struggling to find a countermessage that resonates as strongly as the simple promise of a better, faster, cheaper laptop. Bill Gates and the leadership team are reportedly discussing a massive overhaul of the Microsoft Store to try and make Windows feel more like a modern app-based environment. But we have seen this before with Windows 8, and the users hated it. The challenge is trying to modernize on top of 40 years of baggage. It is like trying to turn a cruise ship into a speedboat while it is still in the middle of the ocean. Google, by contrast, started with the speedboat. As we wrap our heads around this leaked memo, it is clear that the tech world is at a branching point. The era of Windows dominance is being challenged not by a more powerful OS, but by a more efficient one. The 6 million people who switched are the first wave of a change that will define the next decade of computing. Whether you are a fan of Microsoft or not, You have to appreciate the magnitude of this moment. It is a reminder that in tech, you can never take your users for granted. Trust is hard to earn and very easy to lose, especially when your competitor is offering a simpler life for a fraction of the price. Stay tuned as this story develops, because the fallout from this leaked memo is just beginning. We are going to see how Microsoft reacts in their next major update, and whether they can find a way to make Windows the OS people want to use, rather than the one they feel forced to use. The battle for your desktop is heating up, and for the first time in a long time, the underdog is winning. The Chromebook revolution is here, and it is 6 million users stronger than it was just a few months ago. Keep your eyes on the stats, because the next quarter might just change everything we thought we knew about the future of the PC. Technology is moving forward, and this time it is doing so without waiting for the giants to catch up. The stunned silence in Redmond says more than any press release ever could. The future is light, it is fast, and it is happening right now in the cloud. Check your hardware, look at your needs, and maybe you will be among the next millions to decide that the best computer is the one that stays out of your way and just works. Turnover is coming, and it has Google's logo on the lid. Don't be surprised when the world looks a lot more like a browser and a lot less like a window.